This is my wife's '02 Buick Park Avenue Ultra, and the seats, you may have these problems. The front I've fixed last week. You can see it goes up and down. Whereas the back just makes an annoying sound you can probably hear. What happens is the teeth in the plastic gears break off, and then they are no good because it just stays at that position. Those two teeth stay there while the motor spins around and around. So what I'm going to demonstrate today is how to actually replace those motors. I am not a professional, and the modifications I do are not guaranteed safe. You perform these repairs at your own option. No guarantees whatsoever. It is your own risk. Now the first thing I'm going to have to do, and your seat may be different, but I've got two bolts that hold this seat in. There is one down underneath here. You can see that one there, and then there's one underneath that cover plate right there. All I'm doing to take the cover plate off is just grab and pull back. You can see that bolt right there. So I'm going to have to slide the seat forward to be able to access those. And both of those are a T50 bolt on those. So I just have a T50 wrench piece here that goes right into my 3/8 drive socket. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. So here you can see I've slid the seat forward to expose more of my rail. That way I had easier access to the bolts. Right here's the one for this side. Now, like I said, depending on the vehicle you have, you may have bolts in different positions, things like this. But this vehicle only has these two in the back. I tipped the seat forward a little bit with my head there so I could get that bolt out. This one, same thing, take a little tension off. So right there, the whole seat now will tip up, because there's two hooks in the front that hold it down in, so we'll have to tip it up and slide it back a little bit to get those hooks out. Now, you can also see down here in my electrical connectors, the yellow one should have a safety piece in it that you have to slide out before it'll unclip. This one doesn't have a safety piece for it. Yellow one, I believe, is for airbags on this model. If yours doesn't have airbags built into the seat, you probably don't have that yellow one, would be my guess. So what I'm going to do now is I like to have the seat slid back quite a bit further before I actually go ahead and disconnect my electrical. So my forward and backward still works. It just makes it easier to take it out of the vehicle instead of going ahead and having it so far forward. That way it's more lined up with the rails. Notice that none of these plates have to come off on this one. So now I'll go ahead and take I'll disconnect my two electrical connections, take the whole seat out of the vehicle. I'm going to lean it forward a little bit too. And then you can see that airbag right back in there. Then the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is carry it into the garage so I can work on it. So that'll be where you next see this video. I told you next you'd see it inside the shop. I was wrong. I want to show you this. For the yellow connector, once you take the locking piece out, we had to lift up on that to pull it off. Both of these should be clipped on the bottom rail hill. Here, this one I'm going to have to insert a screwdriver in either side to pop that loose. And that should go ahead and take care of it. Next shot should be in the garage with the seat upside down. I'm going to set it on the headrest and the bottom of the seat. I told you that the front hinged in two grooves. Right here's one groove. Over here's the other groove. Then you can see back there's where one bolt hole is. There's my electrical connectors. There's the other bolt hole. So I had to hinge it forward to go ahead and get it out of there. Now, one thing to note, I may have leaned the seat a little too far forward. It made it a little bit of a pain. If you leave it leaned back a little bit, it comes out easier. Now I'm going to show you the seat upside down here. So I've got all my tools sitting around getting ready to do this. But I've got it sitting on a creeper here, and then I've got the headrest on a box so that it doesn't get dirty. You can see that I've already gone ahead and replaced this motor on this side. I did my own modification there and replaced that. That was bad. I also went ahead and modified up here. I put the wrong motor in. This motor should have been over here instead. There's another motor that sits the correct way for that. And that'd be this one right here. Notice where the plug connector is. So this is the motor that's actually supposed to go right here instead of that one right there. So this one I had to go ahead and modify a little bit, and I'm going to be able to put in there hopefully today when I'm doing the other one as well. That'd be better than cutting through up here like I did. I figured the car's got 160,000 miles on it. It's not a big deal to me. This one is the one that goes the back up and down, you can see that's linked up to the back. Whereas this one over here links up to the front mechanism up here. So that one I did last week, it seems to be working great for me. Well worth the money to fix it. This one's the one that's coming out today. These are slightly different motors than what's in there, so it takes a little bit of work to get them in. That's what I'm going to be going through today. So right here's the existing motor once again that I'm dealing with in there. The problems you run into are up inside of this device. There's a nut. That's a left-hand nut, which makes it a little bit of a pain to get it off. And the existing motors almost never fail. It's the little teeth inside of there, and I'll show that to you later. I have the new replacement motor there. It fits up right there. Has an electrical connection in about the same place. Should go ahead and work there. This one I've got a new nut on the end of right there. You can see. We'll reuse. There's some little spacers in there, and there's also a little washer right here. You can see that I've got loose over on this side right here. Is that little washer. We'll go ahead and put this in there, and it'll take a little bit of modifications to get it to go, but it also has larger gears inside. That's what makes it work so much better. These you cannot order. No company goes ahead and sells a motor that goes in the correct direction with the nut and everything on, so I have to go ahead and put these together for it. That's why I went ahead and used the same motor over on this side. I put this same one in here. This is actually cheaper for me to build than the other one that I was telling you I'm going to go ahead and end up putting in there later today. The ones with the electrical connector where it belongs instead of where the other one is costs about an extra $25-30 to go ahead and get those built. So that's why I tried that first, just to go ahead and see if it would work, and then I'll go ahead and try swapping it today, see if I can get the correct one in there. That way I won't have to have done the modification up here. So the first thing I'm going to do to go ahead and get this existing one out, I'm going to undo my electrical connector, which shouldn't be a big deal. That's right out here. If I can get that popped off while holding the camera, not so sure I can. So I'll go ahead and do that off camera. That's no big deal right there. Oh, maybe I'll come here. There we go. Just had to push in on this piece so it could come out from there. Next thing I'm going to do is there's a little snap ring. Let's see if I can get my flashlight in here. So right down in the side right there, there's a little snap ring on the shaft that holds the back of the motor in there. So I just use a screwdriver and pry that off. Then I go ahead and push the little shaft out. It's a little pin, and I don't reuse that pin because that snap ring is hard to get back on in the situation we've got. So I'll show you how I replace that as well in this assembly. So I'm going to take that pin out, then I'll go ahead and resume the video again. So when I was taking that pin out, you can see the pin's now out. I didn't worry a whole lot about being careful because I'm not going to reuse it. Right there's the little snap ring that was on there. And then right here's the pin. Now something to note about the pin, there are little teeth on the end of the pin there that's set into this side bracket here. So it takes a little bit of force to get it out. I used a pair of slip wrenches so I could go ahead and push on the end of the pin that was setting over here and on the bracket here to go ahead and get that slid out. Came right out. Once I got that started, I wiggled the motor a little bit. You can see now that the motor moves up and down freely, and I went ahead and took care of that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut the shaft on the motor. We're not reusing it, so I don't need to worry about it. Now what I like to do, if I have enough space, when you do that one, you have enough space that you can swing it up out of the bracket and go ahead and unscrew this a little further. This one I don't have a whole lot of space. I'm going to use a Dremel to go ahead and just cut across in here somewhere. It's pretty soft metal. You could probably use a Sawzall. You could probably use whatever you wanted to. I just use a Dremel with a cutoff wheel, and it seemed to work fine on the last one. So I'll probably show you the clip after I've done that again. So once again, I modified my plan of attack. I have taken this up out and rotated the motor just a little bit, and I took out two screws. There was a screw right here and a screw right here on the motor. I'm going to crack the case open. I didn't have enough space to get my Dremel in and cut there. I started to make a little cut and figured it would be a lot easier to take this motor apart first. So when you take this apart, there's going to be little pieces that fall out if you're not careful that are supposed to be the end of the shaft right there. So that little thing looks kind of like a battery. It comes out easily. This is the shaft right here, and this one you can see right down in there, that little white tooth. That'd be one of those teeth that breaks off of that gear right there. And you can see right here that we're missing two teeth on it. You should be able to see right there. If not, let me try shining the flashlight in there a little more. but there's 2 teeth missing off of our gear right there where the motor sits. And that's why it just keeps spinning and not go ahead and do anything good. There's actually a few more than 2 there. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off, leave the old gear on there, cut through the shaft, and then hopefully I can show you the next step. So I went ahead and cut through it there. You can see where I cut through at that point. And then I was just almost through and my Dremel disc was about gone. So I went ahead and used my pliers, my slip job pliers, to go ahead and take care of it. So now it's still a little hot, but I can go ahead and thread this out. You can see that nut moving in there. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to thread this all the way out until I can get that shaft out of inside there. And you can see that little plastic disc in there, and there's 2 metal washers that I'm going to reuse on the next shaft. I'm going to go ahead and go off camera here for a little while. This is still pretty hot, so I kind of want to wait till it cools down a little bit to take it all apart. And then I have to, for the new motor, I guess I could show you that while I've got this running. So let's get that out of the way here. The new motor that goes in there, if I were to set this down in here, you'll see it looks like the wires are a little tight over there, but that should be alright. They have some give to them. There we go, it's out of the way. So you'll see that if you were able to look down in there, I guess you can't really see, but the bolt hole for the old motor isn't quite high enough for the new motor. The new motor is just a little bit bigger on the back end. It doesn't have the taper to it like the other one does. So what I'm going to have to do is drill new hole for the motor bolt to go through. So if we look in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drill a hole kind of up right about here. Now on the other side I know is right about here. You can see the old hole is down lower. I've got to come up a little bit, and that's where I'm not guaranteeing that it's safe at all. This is the way I've found to work. On the other side, it only needed about a 1/4 inch, but I shifted it up quite a bit more so I didn't have to fight it. I'm going to assume that this side is the same. And what I actually do for that is I take, first of all, a 5/32 or a 1/4 inch, 5/32, or not a 1/4 inch, a 5/32 drill bit and drill through first. I have a right angle drill that I went ahead and bought for this project. So right here's my right angle drill. It still has my 1/4 inch for when I finish, but I start out with a 5/32 for a pilot hole, go through, and then I go ahead and use a 1/4 inch because that's the size of the pin that we need to put in the end. This was like 50 bucks, the drum was like 20 bucks, and I figured that was cheaper than ordering the other options to go ahead and solve this or buying a whole new rack. Now the right angle doesn't look like it's as important here. On the other side here we had this motor that sat right here, so I had to use a right angle to get it to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera, I'm going to go ahead and take that bolt out the rest of the way, and I'm going to go ahead and drill my holes through this piece and this piece, just keeping it as square as possible, and then I'll show you putting the new motor in. So a couple things to show here. First of all, I do have the second hole drilled there. Note, while you are doing this work, keep in mind metal filings can fly, so make sure to go ahead and wear safety glasses and air protection, especially with that air drill. This is the old shaft out of the old motor, and I want to reuse these bushings right here, this little plastic spacer and the 2 washers, just to go ahead and protect things so that it doesn't get too tight on this nut on the end. Remember, this is a left-hand thread nut. It's kind of a pain to get up out of this bracket right here. So I had to, once I got it so far that I can't reach it at this end down here, I had to go ahead and put a 1/2 inch socket down in there and kind of wiggle around and get it so that I could get it out the rest of the way. Then to loosen that nut, I had to go ahead and put vice grips on the threaded portion here, and then go ahead and use a crescent wrench to go ahead and bust that loose. It doesn't come off easily, but we want to take that off so that we can go ahead and reuse these spacers. So to put the new motor in, the first thing that we're going to go ahead and do, let me wipe off my hands here a little bit, don't get the camera too dirty. So what I'm going to do with the new motor is, this one may be a little bit of a challenge because on the other one I was able to go ahead and stick this in and turn it a few times to go ahead and get me some distance in there. So I'm going to have to do some looking. I may have to take this motor head apart so that I can, so right there's 4 T25 bolts. So once I take those off, then the motor won't be locking the shaft from spinning. I could thread the shaft in a little ways, tighten it all back together with a wrench, and then I'll be able to put my spacers on the end of my threaded rod there and put my new left-hand threaded nut on there. Then what I'll be able to do is put these in here. I can adjust this whole bracket up and down as need be. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. It doesn't appear that I'll be able to get it threaded in with the motor attached like I was able to on the other side. The other side, this whole piece, I could swing up out towards me, so I could go ahead and have it out here and work it on in. This one here, I've got this bar across here and I don't really want to have to remove it. So in the next clip I should have this apart. I should have that in part way. Probably have the nut, which is a left-hand thread nut. There's just enough space down in that bracket to get a wrench in there, kind of tighten that up, and go ahead and have those spacers in there, and probably be shown how to put this in the bracket down here. So to go ahead and get this to work, I ended up taking the whole motor apart. So I've got the motor setting off to the side and the back plate setting off to the side. Keep in mind this is packed full of grease. You may want to repack it when you're done. I am just being very careful to keep things clean, so I was able to get that threaded up in there. I still have my 4 screws there that'll go through my motor when I'm ready for it. And so now the fun part is I'm going to have to go ahead and get up in there. I can thread this rod in and out. So I'm going to probably thread it almost all the way up and get my nut on in there. I'm going to do that off camera. Once again, going to be a little bit of fun. So right now I'm just in the middle of putting this motor back together. So you can see I can get my T25 wrench in here. I'm just tightening these back down. Now the nice thing is it doesn't really matter a whole lot where that shaft is at, because if you watch up here you can see that this whole linkage will lean for me. The whole seat will lean up and down for me as I push my motor up and down. So that goes ahead and allows me to adjust here. I'll get this all tightened in, and then I'll go ahead and put my new bolt through there. What I'm going to do is I've got a 1/4 fine thread bolt right here, and I'll just go ahead and use a bolt instead of a pin, and it'll go through right there. And then I'll go ahead and use a locking nut on the other side, tighten that up, and that should go ahead and take care of holding it for me. Plug it back in. Once I get this all tightened up, I'm going to make sure that my nut up in here is tightened up. Let's pull that down so you can see I've got those 2 spacers and I've got my nut up in there. Remember, that's a left-hand nut. So once I've got this all together, I'll double check, make sure that's tight with the wrench, make sure that I get this all nice and snug, and then I'll probably show you that again so you can see what I've got done. So here you can see how I'm able to tighten all those screws down in there. I can rotate this motor around, and I've ran up and out, and I have my wrench up on that end with a bunch of extensions here. That way I could go ahead and reach all that. So now that I've got all of those tightened back in, it's all set, I can go ahead and get this one down into place. So it's hitting over here right now. That's only because I need to go ahead and pull this back so it lines up down there. So I'm going to go ahead and tweak on it just a little bit and make sure everything still clears. So I pulled that whole mechanism back a little bit. Now I'm getting that lined up, so I'll be able to put my bolt through right here on the left hand side and come out the right hand side and go ahead and put my nut on there. I've already taken care of tightening up my nut up inside of here. Otherwise you can sometimes get a box end in there, or if you did it before you slid that down, you can actually get a ratcheting with a flex in there and go ahead and tighten that one on. So a couple things I want to point out before I put the seat back in the car. I have gone ahead and swapped this motor out for the correct one. Notice how it goes ahead and plugs in on this side versus where I had it up over here before that I had to plug in and I had to cut and modify that. This is the better design for it. And notice also how this one wobbles a little bit. That's because there should be a little bit of give to the pin there so that it doesn't cause any issues. This one doesn't wobble so much. That'd be because I kind of went a little crooked when I was drilling this. I think it'll be alright. But that's why you got to make sure you drill straight. Also, these 2 clips clip up on this bar. So I've got the yellow clip there, and this one clips right up there. So I think it should all be ready to go back in the car, and then I should be showing you it working next. I'll just put my 2 bolts back in. That one goes right there. The one goes back over here once I get my electrical hooked up and can slide it back. And then I should have all of my motors fixed. So I went ahead and put the seat in. What I found is when I switched the motor for the front rotate, which we can see from the back is right up under here, it was going in the opposite direction from what I'd push, which would be alright. But when I switched that motor, I didn't think that it might be reversed. The original one that I had in there that I put on the other side works perfectly fine, works like it's supposed to. The up, down, in the back works fine. So if you would have done the modification like I did, where I cut the piece of metal and went ahead and went with the cheaper motor, it works perfectly fine. If you want to go with the higher end motor that has the correct electrical connection, you need to flip-flop your wires. So I've unplugged my wires right here, and I'm going to go ahead and pop out the retainer in the back here and switch the blue and the green wire around. That should go ahead and take care of it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and then we'll go ahead and make sure it all works. I want to show how to release the connectors for this piece right here. Right here is what those connectors look like, and there's a little tooth up top that goes ahead and holds them in the clip. So what I had to do was insert something small right up at the top there, and then I could go ahead and oh, that's not very focused, but I inserted the little pick in the top and it released it. Then I could go ahead and swap those around. Okay, so I've got the seat all back in. I've put my 2 bolts back in. I just snapped that one right back on like that. I didn't go ahead and reconnect the safety pull on the airbag one. I can do that later. That's not a big deal. I just want to show it all working. So I'm going to slide this on back. Now if you want to, while you've got it apart, you could lubricate everything up, that's fine. Now the up-down for the front goes up, the front goes down, and the rear one, I can show you with the gap there, the rear goes up, the rear goes down. So I've gone ahead and fixed it all. So a few notes about it. If you go with the cheaper motors, you don't have to worry about flip-flopping wires. If you go with the more expensive motor for the front up-down, you need to go ahead and flip-flop those 2 wires that I showed you how to do. If you go ahead and, oh, I forgot to put this little connector back in, so I'm going to have to slide the seat back forward. That shouldn't be too hard to go ahead and clip that back in. But there are a few little things there. Make sure to go ahead and wear safety tools. That should go ahead, safety equipment, air plugs, safety glasses, all that good stuff. But that is how you go ahead and fix the up-down on your, should fit most 97, I think, through 04. This range of them that seem to have those issues. So I'll go ahead and get this little clip back in, and I'll be all done. And it all works. Now the fun part of cleaning up the mess. So just in recap, took me about 2 hours. Now, I haven't done this before, so it took me some time to figure out what I was doing, things like that. Remember, the teeth, break on those. Also, you saw that swiveling piece that I was kind of fighting when I was dealing with that where the shaft goes into and I have to use the left-hand nut. You can also go ahead and cut that rivet. Some people do that and go ahead and use a new bolt for that. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to deal with that. So that basically takes care of it. Having a second person's handy. I didn't have a second person and I was able to get it done. If you have questions, go ahead and post your questions. I'll see what I can do to help you. And I'll be seeing if I can go ahead and get these motors set up. Like I said, they are not something that you just order. It's something I had to get the shafts and the motors and all that and put them together after the fact. Especially for the more expensive one, the up, down, in the front. If you want the electrical connection in the correct spot, that's not a fun one to go ahead and find and get the parts for. So hopefully this will help some other people that are struggling with this. It'd be nice if GM would go ahead and come up with a replacement motor for these so we don't have to do this instead of buying a whole new rack.